Good day, everybody, and welcome back to Splints and Whiskey. My name is Liz Arts, and I am super stoked, super honored to be here today to host this episode of Splints and Whiskey with two complete badass warriors that I know our community follows, they love, and it's awesome. Before we start and get this conversation going, I'm the host today, but I'm certainly not the moderator. These guys, I want them to be able to talk to themselves. So I've got Chris Cathers here, CEO of my Brothers Keepers Veterans Foundation, and .org, www.bkvf.org. And then Nick Lavery. You guys all follow Nick Lavery. He's freaking awesome. And so I'm super stoked to have a conversation about resiliency. I really want them to actually say where they're going to go. So thank you to our sponsor, Life Autonomous Care Consultants. And if you want to find the whole triad of either our foundation that gives to veterans and first responders training gear or gear if they can't afford it, or you want to buy gear, DoD or first responders, EMS, paramedics, guys like that. Or lastly, if you want to just click into Splints and Whiskey, the best way to find us is www.thelizarts.com. You'll find the whole family, join the family, and then get to see the whole triad. So thanks to the sponsors. And now I'm going to have these guys introduce themselves because if I tried, I would mess something up. So Chris, if you don't mind, you've been on the show before with Sam. If you don't mind, if you could go ahead and take over the baton and lead the way, and you both introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
All right. Yeah, I'm Chris Cathers. I'm the president and founder of Brothers Keeper Veterans Foundation, a nationwide 501c3.
Yeah.
And we're trying to curb the epidemic of veteran suicide. That's kind of our mission, our focus, and my day-to-day, which gives me my why, And, a little bit about me, Green Beret shortly. Then I went OGA. I worked for the CIA as a GRS contractor for several years, Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, Palestine, all the fun places. And then dealt with some mental health issues, decided to do something about it. And while dealing with being terminally ill with stage 4 cancer. So that's kind of a weird intro, but that's my background.
Pretty major. What about you, Nick? You want to introduce yourself to the body of believers who don't know you?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Lavery. I'm an active duty Green Beret in the Army Special Forces. I serve at a 5th Special Forces group here at Fort Campbell. I've been doing this now coming up on 19 years, which is, Chris can speak to this. It's just wild how fast it goes by. Beyond that, professionally, I've had the privilege, I've been blessed to kind of identify my next purpose beyond military service, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about, here in a minute. And I started my first company back 4 or 5 years ago now. We focus a lot on leadership development, some executive coaching, some business consulting, team building, and that's still very much a passion project, but it's taken off into kind of its own animal. It's called Precision Components.
Yeah.
More significantly than that, though, is I am a husband and I'm a father. My wife is also active duty Army Special Operations. She's been at this now 25 years. She just started retiring actually a few months back. And we're the proud parents of 2 young boys. Oldest is 8, youngest is 4. They're both savage animals. And those 3 people are the absolute highlight of my life.
Oh, it's awesome. I saw your picture of the 2 of you guys recently when you were celebrating her. And I was like, oh my gosh, that family, if I sat around the table at that dinner table, oh my gosh, I would be, I don't even know what I would hear, but I would just be sitting there drooling because I worship what you guys do. Thank you for your service. Thank her for her service. And congratulations on being a father of those 2 boys that are, I'm sure, probably already men. So, Chris, I'm going to let you moderate today because you guys have a lot in common, and but then I know that there's some things you want to talk about, and Nick, I want to thank you. Had the opportunity to work with one of your guys who was also on the podcast, Seth Gale,
Hmm.
Absolutely awesome stud,
He's
man.
awesome.
Yeah,
Great guy.
Oh, he
he
is
is.
awesome. It had me in tears. I love him. So what you guys are doing with your organization is amazing. I love how you're feeding into people. So anyway, but Chris, why don't you take it away? And I'm just going to be a layperson. I always say I'm going to mute it, but the truth is that I end up busting in and asking questions. I can't help it. I've been working with the military for a long time as a civilian, but I'm a government contractor and I sell gear to you guys. So we always end up, I can't help it. I've got a lot of lay people questions. We got a lot of lay people listeners. So anyway, I'm muting
Yeah,
now,
I
but
wish I
you
had
take it
4 hours.
Me
Yeah,
too.
trust me, there's not enough time. So I'm going to
Yeah.
try to get to the point and get to it fairly quick just because of the time constraint. But yeah, I could literally sit down and talk to Nick for hours because I could learn a lot, And that's what I want to tie into as a theme. But when Nick was doing his introduction, he's a pretty modest dude. Obviously being a quiet professional, but Nick's widely reported as the first above the knee amputee special forces operator to return to combat. So that's around it's very exceptional, and he's had multiple combat deployments, received high honors, Silver Star, multiple Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars. In our community, he's kind of one of the guys that people look up to, but not just for the incident he went through and how he recovered and his mindset during that, but how he chooses to live his life today. And, you know, I like to really get into people's why, and try to figure out like what exceptional people have. And that's kind of the theme. So, I was talking to my wife the other day, and this was kind of my observation. I said, look, when I was growing up before YouTube, certainly before the internet, you might meet one exceptional purpose in your lifetime. You go to a Phillies game where I'm from. I'm rocking the 215. You go to a game and you meet a player, and that's like your highlight in life. Back in the day. But now with social media, there's a lot of negativity to it. Of course, there's a negative
Yeah.
component, but the positive is one of the things that I'm super fortunate about in the work that I've been doing. I don't financially get paid, right? I love running the nonprofit. We're one of the fastest growing in the country, and it's due to the team. We have an exceptional team that just crushes it. But I was talking to my wife and I said, man, I'm surrounded by doing nonprofit work. I'm blessed to be. I just had a call with Jason Redmond the other day, who's a former,
Yeah.
Navy SEAL, got shot 8 times, once in the face. And like the amount of surgeries and complications that I've been through, I can empathize and kind of put myself in those people's to a degree. And, being through a lot of weird things myself, I just look at the way it could be just a spirit that people demonstrate when they recover, simply there. But where Nick's interesting is like he has layers of exceptional uh, portions of his life, right?
Yeah.
How he led before, and then when he got injured, how he recovered. That was pretty freaking crazy. There wasn't even a standard. So that's kind of what I want to get into because there was layers and it's just really fascinating to be like surrounded by a bunch of killers. So what I try to do is learn. And so Nick, if you could just start us off and just tell us in your own words what happened the day you lost your leg. And I know I don't want to go through like super in detail because I read your book and it was really awesome. But if you could tell people that are tuning in like about that incident and the thought that came first after the dust cleared.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the short version, brother, is on the tail end of our deployment. We had about 2 weeks left. A member of the Afghan National Police Force, a guy that we've been working with for months, climbed up on the back of a Ford Ranger pickup truck with a mounted PKM belt-fed machine gun attached to it and opened fire into me and my teammates from about 30 feet away. And so, some may be familiar with the PKM that are listening. It's a Russian-made belt-fed machine gun. It's a very powerful weapon system. That gun could rip a vehicle to shreds from 400 or 500 meters out. So from 30 feet against human flesh, and it's quite catastrophic. 12 U.S. casualties, 3 of which were killed. And to make matters more interesting, this was the initiation of a pre-planned complex ambush. We didn't know at the time, and there were about 30 Taliban fighters that had our compound almost entirely surrounded. So when this guy initiated from inside our perimeter, they all began launching mortars and rockets and belt-fed machine gun down on top of us. So it was a really, really rough day at the office, you might say.
Yeah.
Most of the damage to me was to my right leg. I took about 5 or 6 rounds to it, which basically vaporized it. Shattered my femur, severed my femoral artery. I probably should have bled out that day. I treated myself with a series of tourniquets. Treated myself with a internal pressure dressing, which is as uncomfortable and challenging as you could probably imagine. Took
Mm.
about 2 hours before they could start landing medevac birds, just until they got the situation on the ground under control. Eventually got medevaced out, and as if I wasn't already dealing with enough of a challenge, I was ultimately administered a blood transfusion with 6 units of an incompatible blood type,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that absolutely, according to science, really should have killed me. Um, from there, eventually, I was able to get to Bagram, and I was basically just a giant lump of flesh and bone. And they hooked me up to every machine there is, and I remained in a state that doctors refer to as kinda alive for about a week, and then I just kind of slowly came back. Eventually, was able to survive a fixed wing flight to Germany. From there, arrived at Walter Reed. I'd spend the next year there going through about 40, 45 surgeries on my right leg as they were battling the infection. So they were just incrementally amputating it, piece by piece. Eventually got
Mm.
that under control. And then I kind of started my initial rehabilitation process, learning how to live life as a one-legged guy, learning how to operate a prosthetic. And it was really there that I set my sights on getting back to the teams.
That's
So
awesome.
that, yeah, that was one of my main questions, like to start off, is like a lot of listeners know you ended up returning to combat, which is absolutely awesome and absolutely absurd and all the things, it's just it's a big testament to your human spirit. And it's like, I have a double amputee friend of mine that lives here locally. I told him I was going to be interviewing. I said, hey, from your perspective as an amputee, what questions did you have? And I already had this one kind of teed up, but I don't know that I ever heard you like talk about after such a life-changing injury, like what kept you committed to staying in SF at that time rather than taking like a medical discharge? And there's no
Yeah.
shame to that, right? Like, but from my perspective, that's another part of the story that kind of gets overlooked is like, at what point, it sounds like you were going through rehab and improving, and then you made the choice, or were you like determined from the beginning? And like, what drove that?
Yeah, I was pretty dead set on it from the beginning. I think actually the only thing I could see crystal clear from when I was in the intensive care unit, and it was still real touch and go, was this mission of getting back into operational status, getting back to the ODA, and just keep doing what I love to do. And I answered this question as bluntly as I can. I saw two options on the table. Option A was you roll over and die. Option B was you figure out a way to get back to doing what you were put on this planet to do.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, and this is almost 13 years ago, and things have changed for me, since becoming a husband and a father will change a lot of things really quickly in someone's life, a lot of gift of perspective. So things are different for me now, but back then, I really being an active duty Green Beret, being a professional warfighter really wasn't what I did. It was more who I was.
Yeah.
Like my entire
Yeah.
identity was roped up in this one function as like I was put on this planet to do this and just this. So if you're not doing that, you might as well just roll over and die. And I don't do very well with the whole rolling over and dying thing. So like that was immediately a non-option. And it's like this is the only one that's left. So this is what you're gonna do. I hadn't a clue as to like how I would go about doing that, but I could see that vision crystal clear. And oftentimes people ask, like, had you battled through the hard times and all the struggle and pain and suffering, and there are layers to that answer, but it really boils down to having a crystal clear vision and a mission of what needed to be accomplished. In those
Hmm.
moments when I was either literally or metaphorically face down, and all of the frustration and the failure and the second guessing yourself and like all that stuff. I'm not immune to that because I'm a human being. So I would experience that roller coaster ride countless times a day. But it's in those moments that I was able to extract myself from the embarrassment or the pain or the frustration and get crystal clear on the desired end state. And just wanting it bad enough to continue to get back up and continue to pay it forward to continue to pay those costs. That's what enabled me to do it. I was just that obsessed with needing to continue my life the way that I felt I was put on this planet to live it.
Yeah, and that's something we share that that's what I'm trying to harness and I keep sucking knowledge out of people that are just I look up to, right? I try to surround myself with people to level me up. I tell people the 80-20 rule. 80% of your network needs to be challenging you, right? And then you're helping the other 20. But if you have it backwards, it's not going to be good for progress, you know? But similar with me, I was suicidal, battling, TBIs and all the things, just because of the career, trying to fix that, wanting out. And then when I got diagnosed, especially with terminal cancer, I was like, fuck no. Listen, I know one thing true in life. You're born, you die, and what you do in the middle is important. And I got a second lease to help other people, and I said, dude, cancer might get me in the end, but I'm going to make it my little bitch until that day happens,
Yeah.
and my purpose is BKVF and helping other veterans that are struggling like I did, because I want to pull that away. So there's like this alignment of like, it's an attitude of, there's a lot of setbacks, and that's something else that I want to get into is like setbacks. But, you know, that being said, like, how many, like, I'm sure you went through a lot of surgeries, right? Because a lot of people that I talk to that have pretty catastrophic injuries go through a lot of setbacks with, as you're pursuing to get back to go to operational, at least establish the standard and heal. Like, how many did you have a lot of setbacks medically? Like, like for me, I've gotten MRSA. I had it this year, and after I got it from a surgery. And you're starting to repair, recover, regroup, and then you get the setback, and it's like those are another challenge, that I think get a lot of people that are going through medical things.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yeah. I had multiple. There's a couple that really stick out in my mind, and that's after I got upright and I got fitted for a prosthetic, and I was back up on 2 feet, and I was gaining some momentum. The docs realized that they needed to go back into my leg and like remove some erratic bone growth that was just throwing off my ability to fit into a prosthetic socket. And so they go back in, they open me back up, they do a surgery. It basically resets the entire clock. You have to let the swelling go down, sutures got to heal, you got to get refitted, recasted, remolded. The alignment's all different. And then you get back into the game, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later. That happened for me twice. And it's those setbacks, man, that will really, throw people off track. And I have the privilege of working and providing some guidance to a lot of different combat wounded individuals, service members from different branches, above the knee, below knee. The world's gotten pretty small nowadays due to social media, like you were talking about earlier, Chris. Back when I was going through this, as I was going through the internet trying to find some references, there really wasn't a lot out there for me to kind of go off of. So now I'm just blessed that people are able to find me relatively easy and throw a question my way and get on a call and talk about it. But this is the thing that I typically talk about a lot. It's a really hard concept to grasp when you're motivated and you're making that progress. It's like, this is all great, man, but like the setback is coming. It's inevitable. It's only a matter of time. Like you are going to have to at some point take 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward, or maybe 9 steps back to eventually take 10 steps forward. It's just part of the journey. And it's in those setbacks that, again, a lot of people kind of start to buy into the doubt and believe the maybe more practical approach of like, this isn't for me. I gave it a shot. It just, this isn't the right time. And like all those things can sound real convincing in those moments of anguish and frustration. So the setbacks can be brutal, more mentally than physically. There's just no way around it. Like it has to suck. Whether you're talking about recovering from losing a limb, or you're in business, or you're trying to write a book, or you're trying to, turn your physique into something that you've got this vision on. Like their progress is non-linear, period. I don't give a shit what you're trying to move towards.
Right.
It's not going to continue to move up and to the right. It's going to go up and down and backwards and sideways. And that's the game. And that's what separates the outliers from the average. That's what separates the greats from everybody else. Those that make it, those that fall short, it's like, how do you handle adversity? How do you handle the setbacks? And that is the definition of resilience per the dictionary, which is an easy thing to understand. But when you're in the game and it's happening in real time, I mean, it can knock you on your ass, and it can keep you there if you let it.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
shit.
No, that's perfect, man. I mean, what I tell people is, you know, everybody that's listening, everybody that's out there is going to go through some level of adversity. Some of us get it a hell of a lot more than others. And, when you are able to be your own turnaround story and be successful going through that adversity, what I tell people is like, if you have a growth mindset to get through that, like the challenges you just described, right? It's not linear. So, you know, the goal's here and you want to go on a straight path, but there's these deviations. And when those deviations happen, that's an opportunity to grow, right? Because like working out in the gym, like callousing your hands at the gym, it takes time and repetitions. But that's what defines you. For my position, being terminally ill, there's a lot of different ways. Just like you can roll over and just be like, "Oh, woe is me." But it's that why not versus why me attitude. And do you ever talk to people about that? The why me versus why not you attitude?
Yeah.
Do you know what
I
I'm
think
talking
I think
about?
taking the victim approach is very appealing and warm and welcoming because it
It's easy.
offsets responsibility, it offsets blame. It's the opposite of ownership, and you're the logical part of your brain that wants to prioritize survivability, wants you to stay in the comfort zone, wants homeostasis, does not want you pushing the envelope, is welcoming you with all of the reasons as to why it's not your fault, it's not the right time, you don't have the right circumstances, da, 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 da. Like, is this never-ending flow of justifications to take that approach, and then from there grow this sense of entitlement. And you certainly see this in the military community where people feel like they're owed something
Yeah.
based on their service. And it's like, dude, you owe you, period. Like, you're either willing to
Yeah.
do what it takes to make it real or you're not. And at the end of the day, it's based on what you can control. You control you control your actions, your attitude, your effort, and you're either willing to do what it takes or not. And this isn't better than, less than, this isn't comparative. This is just a hard reality. And so be, taking the I'm a victim approach is
Mhm.
always an option, and it will always be easy to justify. What separates those that reach that next evolution are those that see the option because it exists and then say, no, like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to gain control over my life by virtue of ownership, accountability, effort, discipline, sacrifice, consistency, all these themes that we all know to be important, but actually put those into practice. And then you dictate your destiny. You are the only one holding you back. I don't care what your circumstances are. You either want it bad enough to do it or you don't. And that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I just love that. It's like, why not you? A dude just hit me up the other day who's a veteran that's struggling, and he's like, dude, this hit me. Got financial problems, got family issues, all his verticals in life are out of whack. I got health problems. I'm facing this illness and that. And I said, hey man, why not you, dude? He goes, why am I getting hit? Is it karma? I'm like, no, it's just shit happens, bro. Now it's time to work. So it's like, don't let that challenge define you. You define you,
That
and
is
it's
one
just,
thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is one thing I gotta say because I call on a lot of younger corpsmen and people like that, right? I mean, these aren't these. Yeah, I call on special ops like too, but not people like you guys. Okay, I mean, some they'll get there, but I call on all these younger ones, right? And there is that whole why me? This sucks. The Navy's not the same as the Navy once was. This isn't as hard. All this. The same shit we always hear, right? I mean, Socrates said it in 532, I think AD. He said, this is the worst, most entitled generation that's ever come up, right? And so it's all it's like he said that
we
back
might
then.
got you beat.
Yeah, exactly, right. So
Socrates might be wrong.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, but yeah, I'm loving this, and I felt this when I was working with Seth too on the podcast. Is that it's like the attitude of I'm not gonna be a victim. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be the success story. I'm gonna be and not for the glory. No, not for the glory, for me, for my family, for my purpose, for my calling, whatever it is. I just had one question for Nick because it just I wanted to know this just on a person just I just what needed to know it. Um do you think part of the reason why you wanted to get back so bad is because you were this is just a I have PTSD, PTS. Chris has taught me PTS learning. But going through a lot of trauma therapy, it's great. I mean, I feel awesome. Anyway, but my question is, did you feel like part of the reason why you wanted to get back so bad during that time was because of anger and being pissed off at those assholes who did what they did and wanting to complete the mission of what, or was it just the overall calling on your life? Like the overall purpose of your life was that I am a Green Beret, I'm coming back, I'm a combat veteran, the end. I'm a warfighter. Or was it like also, did you have a bit of you that was like, I also want to effing, I want revenge?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there was definitely a strong sense of, I'll use the word competitiveness that was part of my
Mhm.
drive from the beginning. Maybe use the word stubbornness. That would probably be accurate as well. Basically, just there's no way this is how this chapter of my life is going to end. There's
Right.
no way. And so, as a competitive individual, again, I grew up playing sports. I played football in college, but I think competitive nature comes regardless of whether or not you were involved in athletics. The idea of losing in this manner just was not going to sit well with me. And as much as I love to win, I hate to lose more. And there's definitely a
Same.
difference. And so that just was a non-option. I'm gonna find a way to come back. At times, I will be relentless. I will be unreasonable. I will never quit, and I am going to make you regret not killing me when you had the chance. And like that one sentiment alone is really what drove me for the first like year.
That's
And
no
then
wonder.
coupling that with this sense of purpose in life, meaning I was put on this planet to serve in this function. That's really all that I relied on. It was a competitive spirit, as shallow as that may sound, and I don't care if it is because it is effective and it's powerful,
Works.
in
Yeah.
combination with a sense of purpose, with like why you exist. That's really what I use to drive myself through, my road to recovery and then getting back into the game.
That's killer. It's
And
killer.
that was what I had teed up next was, was there a mantra, a memory, or promise to yourself, your teammates, your family that, you return to when your motivation waned, when you're in the darkest part, you're just like, you got to dig deep. Was there a particular driver for you? Like,
I'll
I
tell you
mean,
an
that's one
expression
of
I
it.
used. Yeah, I actually have this. It's on a whiteboard right now in my closet, which is where I like put myself together every day and like get upright and mobile. And the expression is, "This is the cost of admission." And I would say that to myself back through the hospital and even back when I got to, Fort Bragg and I was going through all this really hard training and I was getting my ass kicked every day.
The
It's like,
rent's
this is
due.
the cost of admission. And so, we all want stuff. Like people in life want things, whether it's a monetary thing or it's a physical item. I want a Bugatti, or, I want to date that, girl, or I want the promotion at work, or I want to start my own nonprofit. Like we all want stuff. That's part of being a human. But to make anything worthwhile a reality, you're going to have to pay an enormous amount of costs, like blood, sweat, tears, treasure. Like it's going to come with a whole list of costs. And so
Mhm.
every time I found myself face down, tired, beat up, all the excuses sounding the most convincing when I'm in my weakest state, or certainly during any moments of setback and frustration, it was, this is the cost of admission. And you're either willing to pay those costs now or you're not. And that's okay. It's entirely up to you. You decide, you said, I'm going to go back to being a Green Beret on an ODA. You made that decision. Okay. For that to be a reality, you're going to have to pay a whole shitload of costs into the kitty. And so my philosophy was quite simple. As long as I paid in enough, if I just kept
Yeah.
paying and kept paying and kept paying, eventually I would earn my way back to making this my reality. And so it's just this real switch of a paradigm where you start to see struggle and failure and frustration as opportunity to pay those costs. And that's easy to talk about as you and I are warm and comfortable in these like rooms that we're in. But when you're cold, hungry, beat up, in pain,
Yeah.
embarrassed, struggling, it's a lot more difficult to do it in real time. But like that separation of visualizing the value of the opportunity is where it begins. And then if you can buy into that, then it's just getting back up, extracting the wisdom that comes from getting it wrong, which is typically how we learn anything, is by virtue of failure, extract the wisdom, ram that knowledge back into the system, modify as necessarily, and go again and again and again and again. And if you've got someone that operationalized that system, then they literally become unstoppable. You cannot stop somebody who is
Yeah.
going to get back up every time they get knocked down. But not only that, but they're going to get smarter and stronger. You're talking about an unstoppable force, an absolute weapon of mass destruction.
Did you make
Because
up that
the
saying?
more
Did you
difficult
make
it
up the
gets, the harder it gets, the stronger and smarter they get at the same time.
yeah, the cost of admission? Did you make that up? Is that you?
I don't know if I heard that or read that. I'm not sure if I had my own independent creative thought ever in my life. So I don't want to take credit for something I learned from someone else, but I've been using it now for, about 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like fighters use rents too, right? And like opportunity, I kind of think similarly. Like when I had my second surgery after my bone graft, I had my femur come out, my hip, my glute, my quad, and all that stuff. They're like, you can't, the surgeon's telling me you're never going to squat again. I can do belt squats now. He's like, you'll never run again. 6 months later, I ran just to prove a point. Don't tell me I can't do something, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, now he was right. I didn't walk for a week. I didn't disclose that part to the surgeon, but there I was like doing it, but it was like I wanted to break records for myself, not for, there's no competition for rehab, but every rehab I got in, I just doubled down and said, man, you tell me a year, I want to do it in 6 months, like smartly. I don't want to blow something out and have a massive setback, which I've done things like that. I'm sure everyone that's motivated has. But yeah, that opportunity though, that's kind of the mindset that I try to preach to people is like, that's when you're darkest, if you're at rock bottom, there's only one way to go and that's up, right? Are
Yeah.
you just going to hang out down there or do you want to take an assist and start swimming for the surface, right? And work your ass off. So it's like that 1% a day doesn't always work when you have setbacks. You might be able to get to 50% improvement and go all the way back, but as long as you're prepared for that mentally, like, yeah, there's going to be fucking challenges and you have a bunch of them. I expect the worst and hope for the best. And I think that's the spin on the mindset that people get from people, especially exceptional people like yourself, because you had all these trials, like just to make special operations was trial. And then you get in and you go to combat, you're like, well, that's another trial. Then you get injured and you plug yourself, which some people would just die. Like what you were motivated to, like, I'm not done yet. I'm going to try my damnedest. Made it work. And then all the other things. So
When you left, I'm sorry, Rob, but when you left Walter Reed, you said you went to Bragg to like, I guess just get back and get going and everything. You went to Bragg. How long did it take before? I mean, I've never heard of anybody who's not been medically discharged that I work with. I've not heard of anybody, and I'm in the system. Like I work with you guys a lot. So how long did that take to get to where they're like, okay, you're full time, or how did that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I leveraged an administrative mechanism that really isn't used much anymore. And in fact, it wasn't used a whole lot back then either. But it took when I got back to Bragg, after being at Walter Reed for a year, a
Yeah.
med board was immediately triggered. And so I was working as an instructor. I was teaching combatives and I was teaching CQB in our advanced skills company because I needed a job. I needed to provide value to the unit. And then I'm going through a med board. Well, the med board in a lot of circumstances is designed to get people out of the military. And it's
Right.
not negligence. It doesn't come from a place of animosity. Like most people want to get out of the military at that point. Me, I'm like, yeah, I'm staying in. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to. And they're like, nope, you're definitely going to be medically retired for sure. I'm like, that's not going to work. So
Mhm.
I found myself in an administrative street fight with the United States Army. I like to use the term I had to temporarily burn some relationship bridges as I kind
yeah,
of circumvented some people and kind of leveraged the open door policies and just went around people to higher echelons of authority. And so that was a bit of a slugfest, but it took 8 months for the Army to find me unfit for duty per the standards of an 18 Bravo, which is what I was at the time. And
Mhm.
then I submitted what's known as a COAD packet, which is short for continuation on active duty. And the lay or definition of what that means is it basically takes the risk off of the Department of the Army, who finds you unfit for duty, and it puts it on the unit. And so USASOC was willing to assume that risk to retain me as one of their soldiers, despite the Army finding me unfit for duty. So it took 8 months to find me unfit. It took 4 days for USASOC to be like, yeah, we're keeping him anyway. So they approved
That's
it.
awesome.
It went through. It was good. And then it was pretty much right after that that I made it known to my command that I wanted to get back onto the teams. And then about a month or so later was when they initiated what would end up being about a 14-week pipeline that they put me through to determine if I could operate back on an ODA. And then at the conclusion of that, I was given the green light and went back to the team.
So that's a
Damn.
whole nother fight, the whole admin fight. Like,
God, I
and
know.
you know, you're a good fight.
Everybody
like,
I talk to is a victim, man. They're like, I don't want to be medically retired. I had to be. I was blown up in Iraq, or I was blown up in Afghanistan. I had to be, they say. You know, they didn't. I've not heard that. I'm glad. Thank you for explaining that, because
And this still exists.
that
And
shit
when I
is
tell people,
not
you know,
easy.
the United States military is one of the biggest organizations, you know, in the world. They employ like almost 2 million uniformed service members, and then God knows how many GSs and contracts. So it's a huge organization. So because of that, it's policy driven, and it's bureaucratic, and it's bloated, and it's all these different things. But like with a lot of organizations, all it takes is the right person to put their name on the right piece of paper, and anything can happen. It really is that simple. Now, the challenge is determining who that person is. The second challenge is getting in front of that person. And then the third challenge is getting them to do the thing you're trying to get them to do. But there is a way. And so, and I get it. Every circumstance is different and some, but if you really want to stay in the game, there is an administrative pathway to get there. Like, it absolutely exists. You just may have to, you know, dig your heels in and refuse what's being shoved down your throat and continue to find alternative solutions. And like, this is what Green Berets do. I mean, Green Berets are literally built to deploy unconventional solutions to solve complex problems. That is what a Green Beret does. So I found myself in that scenario, exact same scenario. I just happened to be fighting against the same organization that employed me, but it's the same concept. It's the same exact model. There's a way to do it. You just got to find the way to do it.
Yeah. I think, you know, there's one thing I clued in. I don't really listen to Jocko regularly. Sorry, Jocko, but you know, it's just a time thing for me. But I did pick up a really cool thing that he had said once. It was on a clip or something, and I've used it with other veterans. It's like, you lost your job, good. You know, you got cancer, good. It sounds absurd, but like, I've applied that principle myself before, and it's like that growth. It's just like what we just talked about. It's like, expect setbacks, you know. So when they come, embrace the shit, and then kind of double down and work through. You know, there's only one way, and that's through. So I've gotten a lot from that one statement, you know, and I like to tell audiences, man, you know, because people do the why me thing straight away. It's just human nature, but you gotta silence the inner critic, or the inner bitch, as I call it, that sits on your shoulder every day that tells you, you know, it's too early to go work out, you're in too much pain, all the things that people talk to motivate people. But you just got to silence that naysayer, because I think that's one of the things that people like Nick probably do exceptionally well. You probably still have that voice, Nick, like, you know, dude, you eat those 5 bags of chips, bro.
Of course, I'm a
You're
human
gonna
being.
work it off tomorrow, dude.
100%.
And you know, so I don't know, how do you manage that voice? You just like smash it every day?
Dude, like, it's a great question, man. I mean, at the core level, here's my take. Discipline is the foundation of a warrior mindset and of achievement. Like, if you are unwilling to do what needs to be done, particularly when you don't feel like doing it, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose bad. If you're only
100%
doing
of the
the
time.
work when you are motivated to do it, you're going to get your ass kicked. Now, like, you may win a battle or two here and there, but you're going to lose the war, and you're going to lose to the person or the team that's willing to do the work, particularly when they're unmotivated to do it. Now, but if you back that up another step to get to the answer to your question, Chris, it boils down to emotional control, emotional regulation, which is a very easy thing to like nod your head about, but it actually goes against human nature, because human beings are emotional creatures. Dale Carnegie says it brilliantly, where he says, when you're dealing with a human being, You are not dealing with a creature of logic. You are dealing with a creature of emotion. And as we
Yeah.
know, proven by neurology, that emotion and logic are antagonistic of each other. As one goes up, the other one goes down. And so the skill, which is a skill to control one's emotions, is what enables discipline. If the definition of discipline is the willingness to do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not, now you're talking about emotions. I feel like eating the pizza. I feel like going out downtown and having a bunch of drinks with my friends. I feel like hitting the snooze button. I feel like these emotionally charged urges to do something or to not do something. You back that up one step. It's emotional control, but it's also one of the most difficult skills to master or even begin to learn, yet it is arguably the most important. You show me a high performer, truly elite professional in any industry, sports, business, military, law enforcement, choose your vertical, choose your industry, and I'm going to show you someone who has a high degree of emotional control, one that is able to make objective and logical choices in heightened states of emotion. When the pressure is on, when the stress is building up, have they earned the skill to separate themselves from the emotion in order to deploy logic and objectivity? That is the individual that is going to dominate in any vertical, any space, any arena, because it's so outside the norm. It's so scarce because the norm is to allow your emotions to choose your actions. The opposite is really difficult, which is why most don't actually have it. But those that do, that's what enables you to do what needs to be done regardless of your emotions.
No shit. Chris, I'm interrupting because come on, man. Like you don't do that every damn day too. My God.
Well, I
My
found a spot in
God.
2020. I think it was 2023 September. It was a week before a gala, and I had some health problems. I just felt like I sucked it up for 2 weeks, and I was like, I can't walk without being gassed. Something's not right. So I go anyway. I get all these checks. They check me for everything, and they're like, "We think you have leukemia." I'm like, "In addition to bone cancer, man, I'm hitting the freaking lottery, man." And they said I had no white blood cells, immune compromised. I was living like bubble boy for a couple of days. And I'm like, well, I'm going to the gala because you're telling me I'm going to die in 2 weeks or, I'm not, and it was highly probable that I wasn't going to make 2 weeks, and if I go, I get sick, you die. So I had a weakness at one point for like in that 2 week period. I had a piece of cheesecake because I was just like, well, hell, if I'm going out, I'm going to have a freaking piece of cheesecake. It's been a minute. And then I just got right back on it. And here I am a year and a half later. I've told a lot of people, man, people, you might have a bad diagnosis, but like, yeah, what if you're wrong? How about you just don't accept it and push as much as you can? You might surprise yourself. So I was supposed to be dead 5 years ago. If I just gave up on all those activities that Nick mentioned, I wouldn't be happy with myself because I have high expectations. I have a lot of things I want to do. So it's all like tapping into that. And that's super freaking great advice for everybody,
It
business,
is.
relationships, working
Yeah.
out, not dying of weird things.
One of the
So,
hardest things I just had to do is I had to let somebody go who is I say is a Marine, medically retired Marine, and I had to let him go, and I had to let him go because he could not let go what happened 14 years ago for him. And so it came out in secret weird places, right? Like I mean it came out like he was like he bitched to me because the government was closed. Yeah, I mean, I'm the owner and his boss. Like, I don't know if the fucking government's not closed, right? I mean, I'm writing the president every day asking for money, and it was like things like all this passive aggressive stuff because he wasn't dealing with it, right? And and he spent 8 months in Walter Reed, and but he says every day he regrets because he said he was forced out, but he didn't have that mindset. And I'm not dogging him, everybody's different and he has a different career path. He helps a lot of people in a lot of different ways. But it's like one of the hardest things is having to is just to like you meet these people around you that, if he were on this call right now, I think he'd be like, holy shit, there was a different way I could have done it. I mean, he really would have thought that. And that's what you guys do every day, both of you guys. That's what is what Chris, people that come out of your organization do when they're in their survive mode, or I mean their thrive mode, and
yeah.
all that. And Nick, you do it all the time, and especially when you're joking. Some of the things some of your posts. I almost died on your NFL cheerleader one. It
Oh
was
yeah,
so funny. At the end, you go, and at the end, I just don't care. And then you just ended it. I was like, I
yeah,
love you.
whatever.
But it's just like it's like having the mindset like, man, I'm living life every day. And like so this guy, to your point about the cheesecake or the, chips or being human or whatever, he's allowed himself to surrender, right? And just to that shit, right? And then I was gonna have a podcast with him and my other medically retired who TBI cannot at all possibly come back, okay? And he's a Marine, was stepped on an ID, had a big accident, and he just can't. Like, there's no way mentally he can come back. Well, he just did an ultra marathon, and it was like his 16th. Okay. These are people like you guys that you're looking at going, wow, what's in
Yeah,
your
there's one of
DNA
them.
that's different?
There's one of them that just keeps doing it because he wants to find his breaking point. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like he's been doing these, he's one of the best in the world. I forget his name, but he's like, I just want to find my breaking point. And I was like, okay, well, let me know when you find it. Sounds like it's going to
Yeah.
be, but yeah, Nick, going back to like just the adversities you dealt with. I know, I don't know if I've ever heard, one thing, your audiobook is bitching, by the way. I was driving when listening to that, and I just picked up a little shout out to your boy Denny. I just picked up his book, available on Amazon. It's a
Oh
selfless
yeah,
plug, I get nothing.
I
But
want to
yeah, I'm
meet
gonna
that
give
guy
this a read
too.
too. I see you got the forward by yourself, so
I
yeah,
saw
man.
that.
Very
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
cool.
give that a read. Yeah. So from a leadership, perspective, how did your leadership change, after your injury? Did your teammates, one of the questions I had, did they react differently? And like, how'd you navigate that? I mean, obviously, right after it happened, but then you continued to today to be an active duty Green Beret. So how did your teammates, like, how did that impact your leadership? Was it harder to navigate
It
or
became a
present
blessing.
challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it became a point of leverage. I mean, leadership, if you were to boil that down into a single word, I would say it's influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Influence is the most synonymous term with leadership. And the definition of influence is one's capacity to affect change in thought, character, or behavior in another. That's the definition of influence. And that's a phenomenal definition of leadership. That's what leaders do, is they affect a change in thought, behavior, or character in another. And so I was able to leverage a whole different element of my presence within the team room and around the guys I get to call teammates and those throughout the unit, because they had a front row seat to the whole thing. And so, whether you're in the gym or you're out on the range
Yeah.
or you're getting
Motivate
off and
me,
off
dude.
vehicles or you're doing like whatever, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
damn, I need to step up my game. And I think that the most powerful means of influence is by virtue of implementation. Like more so is affected by what you do than versus what you say. And so
Yeah.
people had a front row seat to the way I behaved, my operating systems, the sacrifices I was making, my discipline, my structure, my focus, my consistency, my whatever. It was right there. And so it's like it gets really hard to complain about your stub toe when your teammate is
I
ripping
know.
one
I
of his
feel like,
prosthetics off and he's deadlifting 350 pounds off the ground on one limb. Like that
right.
puts things in perspective pretty quick in real
Yeah.
time. And so I was able to see by virtue of my lifestyle and the way I went about living how that resonated with my teammates, and they were all looking to level up. And so that's what influence is, man. That's what leadership is. So it's been an amazing blessing that's been given to me by virtue of my injuries and things that I've had to go through and battle through. That positions me to create unique influence and affect change in others that I otherwise would not be able to leverage. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's an absolute gift.
It's a
Yeah.
gift and it's an attitude of gratitude. We're coming up on time almost. Chris,
I got one more question for
Yeah,
Nick
yeah,
that
that's what I
was
was gonna
by a
say.
guy who's dying. No, he's not dying. He's a
Oh, you
badass. So
stop it.
he's a,
Oh, by another, you're not saying you.
I do want to do this one question for this guy because he used to work with me in another business I ran back in the day. He's got not. I don't think he's terminal, but he has stage 4 cancer this morning. It just he got checked like I have to do. I'm about a year over, so I'm getting ready to get checked again, which is like I don't live goalpost to goalpost. I get a little nervous before, really nervous when you get the results, but there ain't shit you can do. It's like surgery or death. Choose your option. I'm like,
Yeah.
so at least I can make that decision, which makes me feel like I'm in control of an uncontrollable situation. But this cat, stage 4 colon cancer, not a veteran, but he listens to Nick. A lot of the podcasts are out there about discipline, resilience, grit, mindset. This dude's working out. He did 20 something rounds, 22 rounds of chemotherapy. Yesterday, he found out it spread to his liver, and his name's Michael. I'm not going to drop his last name, but he had a question for Nick. Like, I said, man, I'm going to interview Nick. Is there anything? He goes, well, everything's motivating with that motherfucker. And I said, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry
no
for my
shit.
language, but
Yeah.
just how I roll. But he said, what advice would you give like the younger you? And uh, the more you talk about evil, the less control it has. He said a quote like that to me, the more you talk about evil, the less control it has, talking through just the things you went through. Sometimes it's a positive, sometimes, some people it's a negative, but he wanted to know what advice would Nick Lavery now give to the younger version of himself that somebody might get something out of.
It's a good question. I've been asked this before. I've answered it a bunch of different ways. It's almost
Damn
just
it.
what's speaking to me in real time. I'm going to answer this in a very different way than I probably ever had in the past because I think it also correlates to Michael's situation. For me, up until literally it was 3 days before I was about to be a dad, sitting at my kitchen table about 2 o'clock in the morning, having a little bit of bourbon, trying to digest how my life was about to change as my wife was set to pop with our first. And what hit me was the word legacy. And up until that point in my life, legacy was a very shallow, egotistical, self-fulfilling concept. Like I'm going to live and do things a certain way so that people glorify me after I'm gone. And I want nothing to do with that. Like I want to live my life on my
Same.
terms based on my passions and my drivers. Forget about that. I'm living here for me, which isn't a bad thing. In that moment about to become a dad, the definition of legacy changed for me because it wasn't about random people building monuments to glorify you. It was about the impact you make on those around you. And so my soon to be son became that avatar that I focused this on. And so I think that legacy is a very powerful driver, or at least it can be. And certainly with someone, where the clock looks like it might be ticking. At the end of the day, none of us know how much time we have on this planet. Every day is a
No.
blessing. Every day is a gift. It could end in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But my suggestion to my younger self and to Michael would be to frame legacy in that manner, that it's about how you positively impact others. And it goes far beyond your wins. It goes far beyond your accomplishments or these milestones of first amputee to do this, or I wrote 12 books, or I started a business that made $12 billion. Like those are great things to pursue. I'm not against victories. I live in the realm of winning. That's a phenomenal thing. My point is the way in which you win matters. How you win matters. And that is directly in line with one's legacy. Meaning, are you willing to do things the right way? Are you willing to do whatever it takes by any righteous means necessary? Are you values driven? Are you morally driven? Have you operationalized integrity? These are important questions to ask yourself because you could stack a whole list of victories. But if by virtue of doing so, you have destroyed your values, you have stepped on the faces of people around you, you have
Yeah.
vaporized relationships of people that depend on you and that you once cared for, who gives a shit how many
Hmm.
mountains you summited if you did it like a scumbag? Doing
Climbing
it the
over
right
others.
way is going
Yeah.
to be more difficult to win than if you don't. You just have to simply choose to take the hard right over the easy wrong. So, irrelevant to how much time you're left on this planet, me talking to my younger self, it would be, hey, man, winning matters. Winning is a great thing, but how you win is equally, if not more important.
Damn. Damn.
Well, how about that for a closer for this
I
one?
agree with you. I agree with you. Listen.
There we go. Mic drop.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm like, boom, bam. Listen, thank you, Chris. Well prepared, man. Well prepared for that. Thank
I've
you
never
for
done a, I
bringing
never asked
Michael.
questions before, so
Nice job, brother. You
It
knocked
was
it out of
with
the
me.
park.
it was killer. Both you guys are complete studs. Thanks for bringing Michael in. And Michael, we're sending our total thoughts and like kudos to you, man. You've got this shit. Just listen, continue listening to guys like this. And I want our squad, all the family of believers that listen on Splints and Whiskey globally. We got war fighters in Ukraine. We got war fighters freaking everywhere. I mean, we got I can't, it's crazy, the analytics. So thank you guys both for your time. Thank you for these life lessons. And thanks for the example you live every day. You're both leaving a legacy that I wish that I had half of what you have. But I promise I'm gonna hang out with people like you more often. So each day you'll make me better. So thank you. Thank you.
Michael's got no quit, and it's a pleasure being here. And thanks for having us. Appreciate it, Nick. Thanks for putting up with my questions.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it, guys. Chris, always a pleasure, brother. I look forward to
They
the
were
next time we
killer.
have together.
All
All
right,
right,
man.
you guys. All right, peace out. Thank you, listeners at Splints and Whiskey. We'll see you next week. And guys, stick with me for just 1 second as I just log